Okay, here we go. And GM Farcaster and Twitter and all the ships at sea. We are live for day 2 of our on-chain, our Building Crypto Social with Kira and OpenRanks, talking about channels. And this is our 4th panel, and very excited to have Dan Romero here to talk with us about channels and the vision of channels for Farcaster. So welcome, GM DWR. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you here. And just if you are watching on Twitter, give us a little retweet. And also, if you are watching on YouTube and you're on Warpcast, you'll find this pinned in the GM Farcaster channel. Give it a little recast, and we're glad to have you here. So, Sahil, I don't know if you want to get us started with the first question that you had put together. So the OpenRank team's been putting these panels together and has some questions. So Sahil, I'm going to turn it to you and let you kick us off here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us again, Nanish Prof, and thanks for joining, Dan. So we've been, I think, since yesterday, we've been really exploring the idea of building communities on Farcaster with channels, and I think channels was started as an experiment, reached a level of being a great building Lego for communities on Farcaster. There's about 14, 15,000 and more channels now. And I was looking at the Dune dashboard, which tracks just cast activity across channels. And there's, I think, about 500 to 1,000 channels which have great unique number of casters and volume of casts every week. So they're still being used by specific communities. It could be topical communities, it could be token communities. I think one of the things we're thinking is, what is the next probably new horizon for channels if we had no constraints? Let's assume we have all the tools for making channels great. How could we think about channels being used to build communities on Farcaster? So that's the first question to kick it off. Dan, any free thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that the original goal with channels, and it continues to be, is to broaden the kind of set of topics talked about on Farcaster. I think one critique of Farcaster when we launched channels, which are now almost 2 years old, was that it was very crypto-centric, or the topic of conversation was monolithic. Like whatever was on the timeline, it felt like a big group chat. And I think with channels, it offered the ability for people to find kind of niches and other topics, cozier corners on the network, while still participating in kind of the broader, whatever meta discourse that naturally happens on a timeline, like Farcaster or in this case Warpcast. I think what's been challenging with channels is they work really well for people who are already excited about Farcaster and have kind of made the kind of like full all-in commitment to kind of making it work. They get over the hump of posting into the void, and that has worked for people again who are like already pilled on Farcaster. I think it's been a much more mixed bag for new users for a couple of reasons. So first is, I think people are like, okay, what is this thing? I'm used to Twitter. I don't tag things. Hashtags are cringe. Is it a subreddit? Okay, why can't I post in this thing? Like, so there's actually a lot of, I think, just like low-hanging fruit from a UX standpoint that could be improved. But I think fundamentally, what's been the most challenging with channels is to run a good channel is a lot of work, right? Like basically you are an entrepreneur if you are running a channel that has any meaningful community. And that's the same to say for if you're running a community on Telegram or Discord. Like communities are kind of not just like you set it, people join it, and then it just magically happens on autopilot. They have to be curated. Gardening is probably like the best like mental analogy, is like you just don't plant a bunch of seeds in a garden and hope you have kind of like this big harvest 9 months later, 6 months later. There's a lot of stuff to do. You have to weed, you have to prevent pests, kind of have to nurture the plants with water and sunlight and fertilizer, like all the stuff, right?
You have to check your Farville quests and see what extra points you're going to get for that day. I
Right,
think,
right.
And
But
gardeners are the most patient people on earth.
yeah,
right, and
true.
it's frustrating, and sometimes stuff happens out of your control. You have weather and like all this kind of stuff. I think in 2025 is a little bit of like a delayed gratification is like maybe an underrated virtue, and so I think that naturally people are like, oh, I'm really excited about starting a channel. I'm really interested in AI. You start it, and then it's like, well, no one else is posting in my channel. Like, well, the way to get that to go is like that requires a lot of like hustle and manual work of like basically reaching out, hand-to-hand combat type stuff. All that said, I think what the potential for channels is that if kind of at its end state is actually a tool to build a community in a way that you actually have a sovereign relationship for that community. And I think there have been plenty of examples of this where, Discord, you can go build a Discord, put the blood, sweat, and tears into doing that, and then have that yanked because it's okay. We no longer want to support crypto communities, or we find your type of content violates our policies. And you don't have to be doing anything illegal. It just could be that's where Discord shifts, or Discord says, hey, we're moving in a completely different direction. Sorry, you can't even export. You can't even communicate with your existing users to say you've moved somewhere else. And so I think a lot of people who've been around the block realize that, like, if you don't have a direct relationship with your audience, or you don't have a direct relationship with your user base in terms of developer, or as a kind of channel owner mod, if you don't have a direct relationship with your community, that can be rugged. And so I think that's the aspirational thing for channels. And I think that there are a bunch of tools that could be built to kind of like make that work better. But yeah, I think like channels aspirationally basically mean you don't need to use Discord, because Discord works well for a small group but doesn't really scale. And I think forums are a little bit more old school, but are really not kind of like mobile friendly. And I think Reddit is probably the closest thing to what a channel would be that sort of works on mobile. But I think if you actually look at most usage of Reddit is actually kind of like it's like a wiki knowledge based thing that magically gets a bunch of user generated content. A lot of people get there via Google, not because they are very active on a given subreddit.
I totally do. Yeah,
And
that's
I
usually
think
when I
that's
end
a
up there.
slightly different model, right? Because in the case of at least Farcaster channels today and kind of the aspirational goal, it's more about a community, less about like we are collectively generating a bunch of content that's going to do really well in search engines or LLMs. That's not to say that you can't use the primitive for that, but I do think it's worth like starting from a place of like Farcaster is a social network, and it is a kind of like mobile centric text-based social network with shorter posts. So naturally the channels are going to kind of conform to the shape of the network.
Have there been any efforts to sort of just thinking about the Reddit and Google connection to with SEO, et cetera, for content that's on Farcaster to help with
Just
any kind of
such a small
surfacing?
scale. Like
Okay.
I think that there's probably some opportunities for us to improve that, but I think the problem that always comes back for Farcaster and the thing that we're really focused on is we just need more scale, right? Like channels work
Yeah.
better if there are 10, 100,000x more people using Farcaster, right?
Yeah.
But I think today, you do have some very savvy people building channels, and they've built, Maritas with Success is always a good example of one. I mean, Peachy has a few channels that she's kind of building. Those channels are still fundamentally capped though by the number of people coming into Farcaster. And
True.
so if you're starting a new channel today, there's plenty of people on Farcaster to go grow. Like go get your first 100 people or 1,000 people that are really excited. So I think that there's actually a lot of opportunity for new channels. But in terms of the macro, I think the biggest thing we can be doing is massively growing the number of people using the protocol.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I'm curious about one element. I think I really like the sovereign communities framing, and I think one of the things, Dan, that you mentioned is okay. Community owners or community members have sovereignty over the tech stack, which means that they can't be shut down. They're on an open social network, which has also a sovereign identity layer. It also has crypto rails attached to it. And now I think there's this interesting thing of uh, controlling the economic layer too. Like subreddits don't make any money, right? Discord channels, if they want to launch a token, there's no. And I think with Farcaster getting a little bit more on this crypto first social kind of landscape, there's also a different way to look at channels, not just as content forums, but as these independent communities which also control their content, which also control that they have all the tools and they can also, just like Warpcast is sending rewards to people, what the great,
Channels can.
what the, yeah, channels could do that. Channels could launch tokens. So is that something that, more and more community builders can explore? They can't do this anywhere else, right? Where you have a wallet, you have a channel, you can actually go and incentivize and start exploring some of these economic layers as well. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a near-term opportunity that Farcaster is differentiated in that every user has a wallet. There's a lot of kind of economic value flowing through Farcaster every day, whether it's indirect in the sense that it's people who are on Farcaster are doing stuff on chain, and then increasingly people who are doing it kind of peer-to-peer or within the Farcaster ecosystem. I think Clanker is a good example of a Farcaster native asset launching platform that naturally the kind of primary consumers of that are people on Farcaster. Hypersub, I think, traditionally has been like a good example of something that's been a little bit more paired with channels. And I know Cura, you guys are kind of building tools in this regard, but there are a bunch of people who actually were able to kind of compose a kind of basically a version of Patreon, still relatively rudimentary, using on-chain components and then actually kind of making it work with frames and token gating. And so the idea is like channels are a pretty flexible primitive. And I think that the probably the right thing to do here is like actually offer a couple of like very clear case studies for people who have been successful using channels as a primitive. And then specifically kind of like highlighting, and it's like, hey, if you want to run a community like Success, this is how you go about doing it, and making that as easy as possible, both within ideally within Warpcast, but the beauty of the protocol is other clients can actually go do this stuff, and not be beholden to any other apps, so they can actually build a new type of experience, right? Something that feels more like Reddit, even if it's the same set of data.
Yeah, I love that. What if you had? I know that there's been a lot of changes to channels. A lot of things are developing. Are there other features that you would like to either see Farcaster build in or other devs develop that you think would be helpful to channels? Like, is there anything on your secret manifesto notion that you've
Yeah,
been hiding?
I think it's what I just said in the sense that I think Reddit is a interesting kind of UX that is pretty different than Twitter. And I think if you start from Reddit and work your way to channels versus starting from Twitter and working your way to channels is like done. Or rather, let me rephrase that. It's like we started with Twitter and we're adding Reddit like elements with channels versus starting with Reddit and then like kind of adding Twitter like elements. And so I think no one has actually done this other than Flink, which was Sloke's original, who now works on kind of the Warpcast team. That was his original client, permissionlessly built, and basically took every channel and turned it into something that looked like Hacker News or Reddit. So I think that is probably the biggest opportunity, is to kind of like just start from a client of a little less fast in terms of like the feel. Right? When you have Twitter, it feels very real time. You're always wanting to pull, versus something that's a little bit more oriented towards exploration, kind of, oh, I'm on this subreddit kind of feeling thing, this channel. Maybe you have different feeds, right? Like, so I think one feature that people really like from Reddit is the ability to sort by top and hot and new and all this kind of stuff. We've tried that with Farcaster, just like too much complexity, right? Like Farcaster is a feed app, and it like really, really focuses on whatever's in the home feed is actually the only thing that matters from the vast majority of people who are using it. But the one thing that we have done, I should say Warpcast rather, like not Farcaster, but the one thing we have done that is somewhat interesting and unique is we've actually trained a bunch of people to post in channels. Like, it's like you have all these power users who basically are categorizing posts for frankly not a ton of benefit at this point. Like we tried a bunch of experiments where we tried to give additional distribution and it hasn't quite clicked. But because people actually use channels, that behavior is now accessible to another app that could actually approach it to be like, great, I can just plug into this. I can solve my bootstrapping problem, and then potentially offer features that actually actively encourage channel participation and things like that. And so, so that's like what I would be kind of focused on if I was like coming into the space today and really working on kind of taking channels as an opportunity.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And we had somebody asking about why didn't you start with Reddit as a base instead of starting with the Twitter base? And I think it was, I don't know. What was the reason?
Yeah, I think Reddit is
Was
too
it just-
slow, right? I
Yeah.
think Reddit, like, there's a bit of path dependency as it started in 2004 or 5. It's like the first batch of YC, which is crazy. A lot of people.
Yeah, that was it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't going to put that on
All
the
right,
screen.
we can
Thank
chat
you.
about that.
Thanks, Gloria.
But let me just kind of like, Dan, internet history. Reddit's early version of YC. Actually, Sam Altman was in that batch too, like with his thing.
Right.
And Aaron
It's wild.
Swartz. Like, I mean, it's like a pretty stacked early, like the Twitch
Yeah.
guys. And Reddit sold to Condé Nast for like $70 million. So like they had an exit, and then they bought it back, which is kind of crazy. It's like Condé Nast owned this thing and didn't run it into the ground, but then sold it back, and then now obviously it's a $30 billion company today. The other thing to remember was Dig was actually much bigger than Reddit. Like, it was the front page of the internet.
That's right.
And then Dig made a couple of bad UX changes, and it actually sent a bunch of people over to Reddit. And that was actually a big growth area for Reddit. And so as a result, Reddit's just been compounding for like 2 decades, basically. But it is a web-centric, forum-centric. If you look at the design, it hasn't really changed much. I mean, they still allow you to use the old design. Like, it is a weird kind of vestigial internet thing that just is very hard to kill. In the same way that like Wikipedia or Craigslist, like that's
or Google searches.
Yeah.
But I think it's just once these communities and network effects take hold and people get used to it, like that's pretty powerful.
I think if you changed Craigslist right now, it would just go to zero. Like, nobody would use it.
Right.
Like, they're
I mean,
using it because they like it the way it is.
Power of being early, compounding, and network effects. The problem with Reddit, and especially when we were starting, I think they've had a little bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years. And I actually did a cast about this yesterday. Like, they've really benefited from LLMs and AI. Like, probably the most transformative like amount of like old company that's benefited from it, like tangibly, is Reddit, because of the data is valuable, like the overall translation experience they can now provide. And the important thing is like the kind of naturally organic behavior that started because Google got so bad. Is people would query something and then add Reddit to the end because they want something for people, not some SEO garbage. Anyways, 2020 starting out though, Reddit is not really a mobile-centric app. And the other thing is it's extremely slow in terms of like the post frequency compared to something like Twitter, right? And I think if you're trying to bootstrap something new, slow is bad. Like, you actually want liveness. And so that was the kind of the thought of
the thinking.
Kind of moving towards Twitter. Arguably, maybe the right solution would have been like Texas Boomer. We should have gone after video, right? Like, there's a different version of the world where maybe that would have worked or not worked, but we did what we did, and so I think the trick though is I think it's always been a little challenging within Warpcast, which is very much Twitter, right? Call it Twitter with crypto characteristics for those at home who know that pun. But trying to mash both Reddit and Twitter together it just hasn't worked. Like, I've worked on a bunch of things in my entire career around product, and channels is by far the thing that's kicked my ass the most in terms of just like every time I think I have a good idea, it doesn't quite work. And I think starting from first principles, I think that the way to make channels work is probably have a dedicated client that like treats channels as the primary thing, not home feed.
That's interesting. Yeah. And
so we know if that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to say that we know if Dan wasn't working on Warpcast, if he was a dev, he would work on a Reddit client.
He would work on a Reddit client that was like Warpcast.
Well, because the nice thing is the data already exists, right? So it's you don't have to bootstrap it. So it's kind of like maybe this is the second type of client that you would tack onto this and then kind of go on a different path. You had a question before. a little bit vulgar, but we can kind of go back. Let me look.
Yeah.
Why not Vampire Attack Reddit instead of Twitter? Okay, so
Yeah.
Vampire Attacks don't work. Like, and stop. No one has ever successfully Vampire Attack anything. It is a fake construct that people got nerd sniped because SushiSwap tried to do it to Uniswap, and it didn't actually
Right.
work. The reason is, in consumer apps, people's habit is extremely strong, and you'd have to pay an insane amount of money per person to get them to actually switch. And even then, it probably won't happen because the network effect and the value of an existing network is the sum of everything, right? And so even if you get 20% or 80%, like you basically have to get the whole thing to actually have it matter. And here's the thing: so you Vampire Attack. What happens when you stop paying people? Like, you just like magically created retention and like usage. Like, no, this is like it's magical thinking. And so I think like I
think
get a
we've
little
seen
frustrated
that
when
play
people
out
say
so many
Vampire Attack.
times.
It's just like
We've
first
seen this
principle.
play
Show
out
me
so many
something that's
times
actually worked from a Vampire
in
Attack.
crypto too, with airdrops. It's the
Right.
same. It's the same concept, really, with airdrops. Like you think that it'll bring people in, but as soon as you stop paying them, sometimes it just doesn't work. The airdrops that have worked really well have been to the ones who people are using the product, and because they're using the product, they get this airdrop. They continue using the product.
Yeah,
So,
or let's start. You have a product that people actually really want to
Right.
use, and it's
Right.
growing on, and the airdrop is actually
So
a tool to actually grow the thing that is actually working.
Right.
And I think that like there's so much short-termism in crypto of just like, oh, just give a token. It's just like, yes, I understand what the argument from your perspective is. It's like you get free
of
money.
course. Yeah.
But that free money doesn't last forever, and it takes the thing that someone's trying to build
Yeah.
for a long-lasting and durable thing, and it's just like, okay, let's pull that forward, and then just where's the value come from? And I think like so much of people in crypto is just like, well, I don't actually care about the long-term value. I just want to get paid. And so it's like, okay, great.
Right.
So coin operated people are coin operated. News at 11. Like,
show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome.
I think just one thing there on that point is you absolutely I think agree with it, and you have to build a new habit or a differentiated habit to actually build that new set of network effects. And it's a slow thing. In crypto, we're used to fast things. Hey, let's move liquidity, right? So I think at the end of the day, if we have to, even when we think about crypto social, we have to explore new frontiers for new form factors, which the same or new people might be excited about. I think Clanker is a great example. On Warpcast, they were able to engage, have their own user base, but they were differentiated pretty well, right? And the user base is still same, but you're building a new habit. All the people who thought that they would not, launch meme coins on a feed, they're having fun launching meme coins on a feed, and that's fine, right? And so I think that's one of the real kind of hidden truths which we don't entertain, because in crypto we feel a lot about, hey, let's just get users from here and there and give them money. Very very short term kind of mindset.
We do have a good question here from Basement 5K. Do you have any plans on making channels more navigable, like being able to natively search a channel for casts by user X, or search keywords within a channel and only posts related to those keywords show in the feed? So a little, I guess, really kind of the focus here is on search, but within channels.
So I'm pretty sure we have some advanced search right now. So let me just see if I like.
It does search channels. It definitely,
Yeah. So if you go to like search on web, we have filter by user, filter by channel. So that exists. I think that the tough reality is all of these features are good ideas and improvements that, like, yes, that would make things nicer, good kind of like UX. The reality is they don't get used. So they get used by 5% of people. And so for the people that want to use that, it's like, great, this is delightful, this is amazing. But you're already on Farcaster. Like you're already here. And so I think what's challenging is, yes, can we increase delight for the existing people who are here? Like make them like Farcaster even more? Absolutely. Like totally possible. But the challenge is if we do not grow the social network, and I sound like a broken record because I always go back to this, like the thing doesn't actually work. It kind of continues to be this subscale group of people who are really passionate about this thing. But like, I think the promise and the excitement of Farcaster is the ability for it to have tens of millions, hundreds of millions, a billion plus people using a protocol. And so I think like improved search, again, it is objectively improving the experience, but it is not the thing that is preventing people, from signing up. I think like the primary reason people don't sign up is like they don't have a clear value prop. It's like, why should I sign up? Why should I care? Right. I think one way to think about social networks, social media, I prefer social networks because it's more people oriented than media, although I like crypto native social media or media. Is
I wasn't offended.
It is what Facebook measures their like North Star metric in all their earnings reports is time spent. Right.
Yep.
Like it's literally not even daily active users because they have so many people using it, billions of people, but it is actually how can we increase the amount of time across our portfolio of products, right? Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, spent in our app, which for them, it is because they make money off of ads. So like ads is a function of time spent. However, when you actually think about what consumers are using social networks for is generally like some version of they want to be entertained. You could argue maybe there's a little bit of professional purpose, but entertainment is like you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with video games, you're competing with going out to eat at a restaurant with friends, like you're competing with time with your kids. Like it is the most zero sum, like highly competitive thing, and so that is actually the thing that we have to like stay like maniacally focused on, and it actually kind of sucks because like there's so much that personally like I get a lot of delight out of all these like little knobs and things like whenever I'm using software. But in terms of like staying really focused on if we can't crack like the value prop and actually drive user growth, then everything kind of is it doesn't like work, right? Like it will always just be this science experiment, right?
I'm going to go with this one last question because I know we got to let you go. And we have our next panelist coming in. What is your latest thesis that you're working on to massively get new users to Farcaster from a first principle point of view?
There is no answer. It's a lot of
multiple different things.
Experimentation. We're increasing the number of invites that we give out to people. We're thinking about how we can tie invites and kind of like using the network to rewards. We think that building a better on-chain user experience with the wallet plus frames encourages more people building interesting new things in crypto to kind of launch frame first. And so that world like helps, but there is no magic bullet because again, it goes back to is the most critical question to answer for anybody is why should I care? I have a zillion other things competing for my time. And I think everyone, if you talk to people on Farcaster, whether they like Farcaster, everyone has a different answer. There is actually not a universal answer. The closest thing to universal answer, which a lot of people on Farcaster find like a little like, I don't know if I like it, is make money. Like, and it's a variety of ways to make money. Some people are here like, I want to try to make money trading. I want to make money airdrop. Like I want to, whatever. Other people are like, I actually want to build a business. I want to build gmfarcaster. I want to start a startup. So I think there's a universal kind of theme there around there's economic opportunity on Farcaster in a variety of different ways, and largely driven by the fact that it is both kind of crypto native, so the economic stuff can
social economy,
but also because it's kind of open, permissionless, decentralized, and programmable, right? And so if you have a great idea for a client and a client that can go after like making channels great, you're able to go do that. So,
awesome.
All right,
I know we have to let you go. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been awesome.
Thanks,
we
Dan.
appreciate you. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great. So great. Glad we were able to have him here. We missed a few of your questions. Sorry about that. We are going to bring up our next panel. So I'm bringing up Bizarre Beast, Flexosaurus Rex, Jonathan Colton, and Peachy to the stage right now. So welcome, everyone. Let me make you a little bit bigger there. Excited to have you all here. So the first thing I want to do as we start this panel, talking about, again, we're talking about channels and on-chain communities. I want to start by having each of you just a quick intro, talk about what channels that you are either, or communities that you are involved in, managing, modding, whatever connection you might have. And let me start with Bizarre Beast, and then I'll go to Flexosaurus Rex.
Hey, how's it going? I actually started the Bizarre Beast channel
That would
in
be
an effort
appropriate
to,
because it would be
yeah, it
weird if
makes
someone
sense,
else did.
right? It would be
really
bizarre for
weird.
sure.
Yeah, it would be bizarre.
So actually, and it kind of developed into a beast of its own. Initially, it was just to grow my art and share what I was working on. But over time, the community that built around me started to become so passionate and engaged that I, in essence, opened the channel up to all those people and started an additional dedicated art channel just called Bizarre Beast Artwork. So those are the two
wow.
channels I manage.
So we've got two. One, so you just found a lot of other bizarre beasts who are like, I'm here.
Yes.
And then I love that.
Yeah, they're passionate about the artwork and passionate about building their on-chain experience and having a good time and making friends. So it's been really great.
I love that. Flex, are you there? Can you give us a quick little
Hey.
intro? Hey there.
Yeah, I'm here. It might be very loud. I'm sorry. I just got off the train in Rome from Milan, so I'm
Somebody's
here.
been traveling through Europe.
Yeah, I'm country hopping currently. So hey, I'm Flexosaurus Rex. The main channels that I have started on Farcaster are Flex for Good, Crystals, which is a gem and minerals channel, and then also Space Art, which is all about space art, very self-explanatory. I'm also now an adjacent. I just became an announcer, actually. Whoop, whoop. And, you know, I'm just a big fan of Warpcast and been here present, trying to help grow the economy and the creator economy especially. So happy to be
If
here.
you say nouns, I am required to put these on. So there
Oh,
we go. So there.
wow,
I did
very
that
stylish.
yesterday. They said it like
Ooh la
3
la.
times. It was the panel I was not moderating, and I like literally popped on with the glasses and popped back down. It was funny. Had to do it.
I won't chant it. We'll just leave it at that. But yeah, thanks for having me here.
It's just like Beetlejuice. Jonathan Colton, let me go to you next. And if you can give us an intro and talk about the channels that you've been building.
Cool.
And the communities you've been building.
I just got a text from Basement 5K. He wanted me to give a shout out to the Unique Vehicles channel, which is a great channel, by the way. So I'm Jonathan. Most people know me as JC. And I own the Nature Channel, which I call the Central Park of Farcaster. Currently number two in engagement across the entire network. I was a co-host of I Took a Photo, which is also a fantastic channel.
Great channel.
Yeah. Inceptionally had the vision for that channel, and I co-hosted with him. And, you know, a couple other channels. We founded Positive Sum earlier this year, Eric S. and I. And so I am a big fan of all things Farcaster.
And you also do some amazing writing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Peachy, last but certainly not least, the queen of many channels. What you want to give a quick intro as well?
GM, everybody. Thanks for the warm intro. Yeah, so my name's Peachy, and I have, I think, 13 channels on Farcaster. Most of them are active right now. Channel changes kind of threw some
I didn't
things
even know it was that many. I thought it was like 5.
It's a bunch, and they've all kind of started for different reasons. So I started Anime Outcast for my PFP project, anime manga because I was looking for an anime community and I was not welcome in the other anime community. So Dan told me, you know, make your own channel, and I did, and it seems to have worked out. So
seems like an opportunity for your own channel. There you go.
Opportunity for your own channel. So I do tell people if there's a channel that you love, but you think it's you know, not managed well or is not inviting, you know, to new people, like, hey, take that topic and spin it into your own thing. It's very, very possible. I own a lot of Japan themed channels. I travel to Japan quite often. I really love them. And Japanese casters had a hard time kind of plugging themselves into Farcaster early. So I made a lot of very specific channels just for them. So like Sakura, which is cherry blossoms, Momiji, which is the red leaves in the fall, Kyoto, because everyone who lives in Japan visits Kyoto at some point. So it was really more to carve out space. And when channels were more important 6 or 7 months ago, it was a place for them to post their cast instead of just casting into the void and know that someone would scroll it and see it. And as we got more people in there, you know, it definitely worked out. And the last channel that I spend a lot of time in is Farcaster Union. And that was actually a channel that kind of spun out of my show Power Hour, where we used to talk about power badges, and power badges went away. And it was like, well, let's just talk about, other things on Farcaster you need to pay attention to. But the real reason I started it was because I couldn't post in Farcaster or Warpcast when channel changes went live. And I thought it was really important that like the average person on Farcaster had a channel they could cast in to talk about Farcaster until those channels kind of found their way. And now they're public. So it's not, a huge thing. So ours is a lot more topical, but I think it shows that channels kind of come and go, they grow, they ebb and flow. And I think that's the way. Like some channels are going to thrive in this new channel economy, and some channels, we'll see what they look like in a year. Maybe they're not, always necessary. Maybe they're temporary, and that's okay.
And that's totally okay. By the way, I'm just having this vision of you like Norma Ray with the union sign, which I love that you are always thinking about sort of like a broader audience and like helping folks who might be either getting sucked in by, as labeled as spam, or like having a hard time finding their footing. And I really appreciate that about you. I think that is something that's very special, and that you've done an amazing job with certain communities, just helping them get acclimated and find their footing. And it's been fantastic.
Thank you. I'm all warm and fuzzy inside. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, though. We really appreciate it. And by the way, I love your sparkly PFP there. So let's dive in. And if you have questions for any of these folks, please drop them in the chat, and I will try to get to as many as possible. I knew we were going to run out of time with Dan, so we didn't get to too many, but we'll do our best. We're going to start with some questions from the Cura OpenRank team, who's been putting this amazing virtual summit together. So they did all the prep here. So their first question is, what makes Farcaster channels an attractive space for artists and creators compared with other platforms? And, just essentially like, how is this helping with artists? What has been your experience? And I'll start with Bizarre Beast, and we'll just kind of work our way around like we just did.
I've been involved in social media and the web space for many years now, trying to establish a strong foundation in order to which to grow a business from. I have honestly found that Web 2 social is diabolically opposed to sometimes smaller or new artists establishing themselves and growing a base. And the second thing that I find that Web 2 social is lacking in, which is community building around a certain idea or topic, rather than just following and engaging or categorizing through hashtags. So for my experience as a business owner and artist, the idea of Farcaster channels was really revolutionary. I didn't know what it would mean until I joined the platform and started to engage and understand how channels work and how users are engaging with channels. So from that perspective, really from day one, once I understood how the system worked, I was able to immediately start, I think Dan said it best, one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat style. From day one, I just went out one-on-one, creating custom artwork for small communities and niche channels, and establishing relationships, and slowly over time building a community that stuck around rather than just liked and left. So it's really a powerful tool.
It helps if my mic is not muted. Flex, how about you? That was great, Bizarre Beast. How about you?
Yeah, I thought my
been your experience? Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so with the channel switchover, I've definitely just started to get back into using my channels to their fullest degree. But I'm also the moderator of the Tezos art channel, and to me, one of the real promises of Farcaster is that we have this crypto native grid that people can draw from. So channels, it's almost a virtual single in that it's a specific topic. Like if there's a Tezos art channel, I know I can go there and find Tezos art. If it's a crystals channel, I know I can probably go there and hopefully find some crystals, So in that way, there's a very specific sort of, format that people can draw from to go and experience these different things that they're interested in. And then on top of that, to answer the other part of your question is, why is it particularly advantageous on Warpcast? We have that, that crypto grid. We have wallets that are being built in. We have the ability to mint art in frames. we have the ability to send each other and tip each other crypto if we care to, tokens, now Nish Prof, if you're doing a good job, I might send you a few, tokens for the great work you do in this space. And I think I have before. Don't
You probably have.
that, but I think I probably have. So, for me, those things are the way that crypto is evolving, and we don't have any other social grid. For me, I've been a content creator on Instagram for over 12 years. My Web2 business has nearly 100,000 followers from way back, from what I used to do in the space. And, even that is not as far-reaching of a tool as it is on Warpcast now with channels, because of the fact that we have this experimentation and this ability to reach out to other builders and connect in the way that we can now.
I think we talked a little bit yesterday about the different types of channels, right? You have your very large topic channels like Ethereum or Farcaster or whatever. And then you have channels like even gmfarcaster is more like I'd call it like an announcement channel almost, where we're sharing all our stuff so that you can easily find it all in one place rather than having to go to a website or whatever. But some of the other channels are more community.
Yeah, totally. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so like when I'm thinking about like the Tezos channel, for example, being able to find and connect with other people who are creating on that platform, I think is really helpful. Or if I'm like, hey, I'm looking for, to buy some art on Tezos, being able to drop in there and see what people are sharing and then dive in, I think is super helpful and gives you that one-stop shop, which I think can be valuable to the artists as well. Jonathan, let's go to you for that same question. What makes Farcaster channels an attractive space for artists and creators compared to other platforms?
I think, community and distribution, right? When I joined, I was super lost. And when we started spinning up, I took a photo, and all of a sudden, like, there was a rush of great artists coming in from Instagram and Twitter who I knew. I would send them DMs, right? And all of a sudden we had like this budding roster of great talent in the channel, and it's kind of a flywheel. They're getting distribution, we're getting new members, plus people knew each other. So, community and distribution, clearly the top two. That's why I came here from Twitter and Instagram in the first place. And then I think the other thing is that when you look at, community and distribution angle, you start to realize that channels become almost like pools of ideal customers, right? Because one of the unexplored areas that we kind of got whiff of with Moxie in its earlier iteration was advertising and channels. And I think that's unexplored territory. For Farcaster, that's sort of TBD, right? All of a sudden, you're going to have a large pool of customers who are receptive to your thing in one particular channel. So I think there's future value there as well.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Like, that's definitely something we've talked to a few people about who were building different sort of ad serving things that didn't quite take, but
Right.
You can kind of see the vision of when eventually it will take, you know what I mean?
Right.
Eventually it will make sense. But it also feels like it has to be done in a very organic manner that doesn't feel disruptive to sort of the feed, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, if people want something, like you're going to, people are going to dial that in the future. I don't think we're there in terms of like network traffic and throughput yet.
Yeah. Goes back to Dan talking about that's the number one thing is growing the number of folks. And by the way, are you playing a drinking game? Sexy Basement 5. So you said something and he said drink. So I assume.
Oh yeah. Oh, he wants me to say distribution because that's
that's it.
That's
So
I also
Basement
happen to
5K
own.
has got a drinking game going on for those of you.
I own the distribution channel on Farcaster, so
and
that's why I post a lot of the stuff that I send you.
That's funny. And that's some of the writing I was talking about as well. Peachy, how about for you? What makes Farcaster channels an attractive space for artists and creators compared with other platforms?
Yeah, so I want to riff off of something Dan said earlier, how, of course, you can like start a subreddit and you can start a Discord, but things can change quite suddenly. And as a person who is deplatformed from Twitter for talking about, cannabis, and again, I wasn't telling people where to buy cannabis on the internet. I was talking about cannabis policy and sharing like rough drafts of bills, and I got deplatformed, and I was just really frustrated.
So
I
didn't know that part of your
Farcaster.
story. That's so wild.
Yeah, I did not intend to be an artist on Farcaster. That's a whole nother conversation. But I came here for a free and open space, and the reason I stay is because of the Farcaster Legos. Because what I'm doing with anime manga is literally impossible on any other platform. I could not do this on Reddit. I could not do it on Discord. I could not do it on Twitter. My channel is a paid channel, and it has been since May of 2024, because the whole thing is post to earn. Post good content, you will get rewarded. So since May, people in my channel have been getting rewarded with rounds or tips, whatever was kind of there. And then thanks to Cura, now we have channel tokens. And I don't want that token to be a meme coin and a pump and dump and all over the rest of the internet. I just want it to be for my channel. And I just want it to be a place where I don't have to manually reward good content. The community can automatically reward good content with what they love. And that is something that if I tried to build that myself, I'm not a developer. Right. I'm dangerous enough to like mess things up and, occasionally break things, but like I don't know how to code without the help of a lot of AI tools. So the fact that I can build a channel, I can start to plug in a hypergate for access, and it's less than $1. The whole point is if you cast a few great things, in the course of a month, you'll get your $1 back and maybe make some more. And everybody in my community, up until yesterday, great job, Warpcast team, by the way, doubling the amount of people with level 2 spam labels, which means there's twice as many accounts now that are eligible for Warpcast rewards.
Okay, so that's a good thing. It went in the right direction. I saw your post and I was like, is this bad thing or good thing? I don't know what level 2 means. So I had a little panic. I'm like, oh no, yes. Is she going to lose it, or is it good?
Same.
Yes, level 2 is the good one. Level 0 is the bad one. Okay. I need to reiterate that every cast. But basically, last week, 1,000 people lost their label. So we had 1,000 people go from good to like, we're not sure. This week, we doubled the amount of good. So until yesterday, most of my community was unfortunately labeled as spam. So they weren't eligible for Warpcast rewards.
Do you think most of that's coming from like the language barrier, or like what is that? Where is that coming from?
I think it's a mix. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand the culture of Farcaster, and particularly Warpcast. Like, it is a social network, not social media. And that is really hard nuance to explain. And then if you're not a native English speaker, explaining that gets even more difficult. So I think my community leans non-native English, leans kind of new, and leans a little bit memey and fun, which can sometimes be interpreted by the algorithm as spammy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love channels because, the spam algorithm's not active in channels. It's your channel, your rules. And now we can reward people for their content, even if the greater Farcaster network isn't totally into anime. That doesn't matter. If my people are into anime, they can come into my space, they can hang out, and they can do well. So maybe they're not eligible for Farcaster rewards. Doesn't matter. In my channel, you're eligible if you just authentically hang out, give your likes and your recast graciously to the community, engage with people. And now people are making friends, and we're seeing our leaderboard change dramatically. We're seeing people come in and within 3 days of posting, making it to the leaderboard, and the next week having some anime tokens to claim. And I think that's a good motivator. I see the same thing is happening in nature, right? Like, everybody can go outside and take a picture of grass. We're not asking for this huge lift. We're not asking for you to become a content creator overnight. We're not asking for you to become an artist overnight. We're saying share something that's personal to you, that's authentic to you. Find the right channel to put it in, and you can do well here. Even if maybe, you're not on that leaderboard yet. And I say yet because it's changing, it's getting better, and the team is expanding it. And we can all imagine what that looks like when there's 5,000 people on the leaderboard. There's 1 million FIDs now. Like, every day we're getting more. But I think
have we hit 1 million?
Offer a cool space.
Have we hit 1 million?
I think we did. I think a few hours ago.
Okay, because I saw it when it was like 35 left, and like the urge to go and just like spin up 35 new accounts was very strong, but I pulled myself away from it. So
I saw a Dune dashboard, and it did not have who had FID number 1 million. So I have a feeling that FID 1 million maybe went to the Warpcast team.
They might have been waiting to snipe it.
Yeah, I can't guarantee it, but I thought it was interesting that it was missing 1 million.
That's funny. Either that or it's like a Y2K kind of problem where it didn't know how to calculate that million. I don't know. That's interesting. I want to sort of pivot from sort of the questions we had laid out to just talk about building community. A lot of times in Farcaster, we talk about this URL to IRL connections. And I'm curious, in terms of community building within, you've all talked about sort of different aspects of this, where you started, Bizarre Beast, for example, starting with you're just posting your art, and then all of a sudden you have this community, to, Peachy, who very specifically is, building communities. How are you like engaging folks every day, getting them to come back, incentivizing sort of people connecting beyond just sort of posting on in your channel? And I'll start with Bizarre Beast and we'll just make our way around there.
Sure. So, I mean, we're all here because we're into crypto. We all love tokens. So I really kind of approached this community with 3 things in mind: community, culture, and coinage. And what really empowered the growth and stickiness of my community from the very beginning was my Moxie creator coin. There was a way for me to tie my ambition, my artwork, mints. I can split revenue with my fans by burning the token. If I sell a painting, I can split revenue with my fans and burn the token. There's a lot of ways economically that I can incorporate the culture that I'm building with my artwork into the community that's forming, to where it's advantageous for everyone involved, not just me, to collect my artwork, because everybody grows economically through the coins that we have available. And I'm really excited about taking that to the next level, just like Pitchy's been talking about, and Jonathan, with a channel token through Cura, which I'm putting some documentation for right now with the Cura team, which will really empower the community that's formed to grow even more. Because I've been running rounds and doing many things really out of my pocket at times, and this will help take the lid off of those limitations and help it grow and make it more rewarding for those members in the community that are giving the most support.
I think you just mentioned rounds, and we haven't really touched on that, which I'm sorry, Seneca, don't be mad at me. It's another great tool. It's another really useful tool, and you can use it with any type of ERC20 token.
Yeah.
So it can plug into a lot of different, in a lot of different ways. So for those who may not be familiar, you can go to /rounds on Warpcast, or go to rounds.wtf and learn more there if you're interested in using it in your channel.
It's a really great tool.
Yeah, it's a great tool. And that was, if you're not familiar, that is built by or funded by Nouns, and it started as Prop House and then moved to Rounds. Flex, how about you? How are you engaging your community, getting them to come back, day after day, and sort of build a community rather than just like a spot where people, drop a note here and there?
Yeah. Lately, I haven't been really at all. So, it's been one of those things.
So glad I asked you this question then.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you for putting me on the spot. For me, it's really experiential, right? Like the things that I do in the space as an artist, as a creator, they really just invoke a sense of who I am. And I try to bring that energy to the space and engage people really on a personal level. And I think this really comes down to like what we were talking about earlier about specificity of channel content. And like for me, it's like, the Crystals channel, that's a very specific thing that draws from something in my past, right? And people find intuitively interesting regardless of me. I could be trying to repel them, but if I post a nice crystal, they're probably going to want to look at it regardless, right? So, the Cura team, I'm really excited to learn more about the tools they've been together. When we did the art festival last September in Manhattan with Subjective, I used Cura's moderation tools to, at that point, build a really robust community around that. We had 800 people in that channel. They got a lot of additional attention as a result. Jonathan was there, actually, which was very nice to see him. And, I think that for me, that's going to continue to be the mission, is to just keep you know, showing my journey through the space and trying to connect people to do things and build. And that's one of the things I really love about Warpcast is so many people are willing to build in the open and help each other get a leg up. So, you know, for me, I think that's kind of the next evolution of channels, is just to continue that evolution. And I haven't really thought much about tokens as rewards, but, you know, rounds, like you said, great tool. Tokens are obviously a great tool. Flows, if anyone doesn't know about flows, shout out to Rocket Man as well. So, you know, I think we're going to continue to see these kind of social grade applications grow and become more robust as channels evolve.
I'd love to see flows grow beyond nouns and be able to anybody to use that and to fund their own.
Me too.
I think that would be useful.
I think that's
so flows is a similar. I can't say it's similar to rounds, but it has a similar type of mechanic where but it's on a stream, so you're earning all along, set to a certain amount. So it could be an interesting tooling that could be used by anybody. Would be maybe something to pursue there. Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Thanks, Flex. And you did actually, one thing I did want you kind of brought to mind when you were talking was we also have ephemeral channels, right? We have, like, you can use a channel for a contest and use something like rounds or cure or something to moderate that. You can, you know, have it just tied to an event. So it's going to, you know, it's not necessarily going to be active every day, but around those events, it's going to be useful and active, and it makes it easier to find the people who are interested in the same things you are. So I do think
I mean, that's
super helpful.
As a connector, it's kind of an amazing tool, like I was talking about earlier, to aggregate interest. And, you know, like for me, like Spacestar, for example, like that's a channel I started that has thousands of members in it. I'm not really necessarily active in there every day. If I encounter a cool piece of space art, I'll go post it and promote it. But, you know, there's still people in there posting every single day that are really passionate about that content. And for me, that's really heartening to see that people care enough to contribute to a community in that way. And we're such a small, you know, ecosystem still. We're really going to see the next wave of growth bring in that kind of 10x factor where you see that tipping point. And it's this thing that happens in psychology where they say that if 10% of people within a culture adopt something or adapt to it, then it can become more widespread in its adoption. And I think we're right there with Farcaster right now.
I think we're getting close. Yep, I agree. Jonathan, how are you keeping folks engaged and building community in your channels?
That's a tough one because, you know, there's so much stuff changing on the platform all the time. And so what I've been doing is I have like theme days every week. So Monday is, you know, typically Mountain Monday, Tree Tuesday, Water Wednesday. You know, today is Foggy Friday, Flowing Friday, Floral Friday. And so, you know, it gives all the different type of...
Do we just skip Thursday?
You know, Thursday often has a tree theme, I think.
Okay.
You know,
thirsty. I know. I was thinking thirsty.
Yeah. Your nature thirst trap.
That could get interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Sunset Saturday, and so like it gives everybody like a rhythm of casting.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they like a certain type of image. Like Peachy likes waterfalls, and like she has like great, you know, waterfall pictures in Kyoto with you know, great fall colors. You know, so everybody has maybe a favorite, but they're not like a regular in the channel. So they pop in, drop something, you know, it's
just be like, I'm just here on Thirsty Thursdays only. And that's it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it gives like a cadence, a rhythm. You know, people look forward to those days because, you know, they might have like a specific theme that they really like. So it's been like a healthy thing. And I had asked people in the Success channel, Maritas helped me, you know, ask the whole channel, like, you know, what do you guys think? How do we keep the channel organic and growing? And themes were consistently the most popular thing. So, you know, we've been running theme days for like 6 months. And I think, you know, that helps everybody feel connected.
I think that's really smart for those type of channels. For our channels, it makes a lot of sense. Especially where you have a sort of a broader topic channel, being able to kind of
almost create subreddits, if you will,
Yeah,
you know,
niche
within
it down
that
a little
larger
bit.
channel. Yeah. So I love that.
For sure.
And then Peachy, we're getting to at the end of our panel here. We do have a few folks waiting in the green room. They are all here now, so we're going to shift off in just a moment. But Peachy, I want to give you this question as well. You've talked a little bit about it already, but what ways are you engaging folks in your channels that might be useful tips for others and keeping them coming back?
I would just, I would say Anime Manga does similar things. We have Manga Monday, we have Toon Tuesday, you know, Fan Friday. It's very similar. I'm using the Warpcast rituals, which are only available on desktop, but it's basically scheduled cast for channels. I find they're very powerful. The only thing I've had to think about recently, though, is with Cura channel tokens now, as the moderator and the person who's creating the rituals, it messes with the leaderboard when I post every day and pin my post. It gives me the most engagement. So it's something that I've had to really think about. And I've been testing in my channel the past couple of weeks to sometimes still cast the theme, but occasionally not pin it or change when I pin it so that people remember the theme is there. But I'm trying to encourage them to cast top level instead of responding to me, because I don't want to be number one on the leaderboard. I want the community to take a chance. And I realize that that's kind of the double-edged sword. If you're the most active person in your channel, you're going to get, you know, the top of the leaderboard. And that's not my intention. So it's made me really think, you know, how do I want to do this going forward to make sure that I can still kind of guide the community on some topics and give them some ideas, but not necessarily, you know, have them respond to me to take that idea and then cast it instead of responding directly. So
top level cast rather than reply. Yeah,
exactly. So it's a new kind of way to think about engaging with your community, to say, don't engage with me. Use this as a stepping stone to build your own engagement. And that's been a really fun, challenging thing to think about. So I'm excited to see that. And I appreciate that, you know, sometimes we need a new tool to be like, hey, you're the most active caster in your channel. Do you want to be? And it's like, no, I don't actually want to be the most active caster in my channel. I want to be active, but not the most active. I want to see who else wants to, you know, step up and get showcased. So it's been a really good, just different way to slice and dice and think about channels.
Love that. Also, we have breaking news. GT said the 1 million FID was not sniped by the FC team. So there you go. Mystery remains. All right. This has been awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Cura team, for bringing this amazing stacked group together, as that was when you guys started. That was the comment. This is a stacked panel. What a lineup. So all of that. So I agree. It's been amazing. So thank you all for being here. This is what it was. This episode is stacked. So thank you all for being here. And we're going to bring up our next crew. So you guys can all drop down, and we'll see you on the timeline. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. And while we do this shift off, I'm going to put this up for our next final panel and bring up the rest of the crew here. So Sahil, McBain, K-Mac, and Johnny coming to the stage. And I am going to jump down, and Sahil is going to be moderating this, and then I'll come back at the end to do a little sign off. But hi, friends, before I go. I'll see you. I'll be watching from the green room.
Thank you. I think this is cool. From one stack group to another. Hey guys, thanks for joining. This is the last panel of the day, yeah, we can say we've saved the best for the last for sure. Now that Nanish Prof is not here, but cool to have you guys. We'll jump right in. We have about 25 minutes. So I think this is we know who's the super admin here, right? Anyway, so I think we've been talking about channels and communities since yesterday. And for me, you guys are the flag bearers of that on Farcaster. You're all great channel entrepreneurs. So it'd be good to get into the weeds and think about how we can improve what we can do with channels on Farcaster. Really, that's kind of the highest level theme. We started the day with Dan sharing his wish list for channels. We've heard amazing things about channels, could be like subreddits or Discord channels. I think all of us are either building tooling or using channels in different ways. And let's surface that today and see what we can kind of share as good case practices with folks. So to get started, for anyone who's listening in, of course, I think it's hard to miss McBain, Nonlinear, and KMac on the timeline. You can know more about them. I'm going to put them on the spot and ask them to share their one-line pitch for their channel, what they're doing. But while they think about it, I'll do a quick intro. So we have McBain, who's moderating the parenting channel and the founders channel and many more perhaps, and we'll talk about it. He's also recently launched ClankPad, which is a great tool for channel moderators to create an economic layer for their channels. We have KMac, who's been moderating the football channel, but there's many others. I think Shower Thoughts is also one of the school channels that he's running. And then we have Nonlinear, who's the founder of Hypersub, serving all possible channels with an amazing tool, as well as the moderator and owner of the memes channel, which is the top 3 channels on Farcaster ever since channels were created. So it's awesome to hear from all these folks. I have a few questions, but maybe let's start with Nonlinear. Johnny, your one-line pitch for memes and your vision for memes as a channel on Farcaster.
I guess the pitch would be, laugh. Like, go to the memes channel to see good memes, to have a laugh, to steal some memes, post them elsewhere, post them in your family group chat. And then as far as the goal, I think it's to try to create some kind of sustainable economic engine wherein there's money coming in through various means, whether that's advertising, tokens, membership. Like, I think that we're in this discovery phase right now of crypto, specifically for like consumer use cases for communities. I don't think anyone's really figured it out yet. And so I think of the channel as this kind of fertile ground, like to try things and not be precious about it, to experiment with different models to see how they work or don't work, so that, we can learn from it, that I can learn from it, and that others can learn from it. But the goal is to not just create value, but to capture value and then to share that value with the people that make the channel special.
That's awesome. McBain, you wanna talk about parenting founders or any other channel?
Yeah, parenting is probably the most like wholesome thing that I have going on right now in my life. It's a super fun channel. I created ClankPad and I actually banned it from parenting because I just don't want to ruin the vibe in parenting. But no, I think it's really great in that it's like a refuge from all of the rest of crypto, but you also get to talk with crypto friends. And so it's like people you have this cool and common thing with, but you get to commiserate about other stuff, which I think is really great. We did something a while ago, which I'd love to do more of, which is Will from Splits had a baby, and then we as a channel bought him a gift card to like buy dinners. And so he could get his favorite dinner for his wife when they, were in the postpartum stage, which was cool. So my dream for parenting would be every time somebody has a baby, we send like one of those in the Nordic countries, they send you a box when you have a baby. That's everything you need to keep them alive for 3 months. And it also doubles as a bassinet. So I'd love to be able to like do that through parenting, which is really cool. Also shout out the hockey channel. I run that because I play hockey, and America lost to McDavid and team last night, which is okay. But yeah, just a channel like everything Johnny said. It's an incredible place. There's the opportunity to own a community, and that everyone has money and you can natively, create and share value. I think is so exciting. I think there's an opportunity I've yet to see seized yet, which is like take all the raw input of a channel, focus it,
publish the best of that to other channels somewhere else, monetize it, and then return that money back to the people in the channel. I've yet to see that loop fully created yet, but I think it's going to be a no-brainer when it happens.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we'll get into you and Johnny both touched on interesting themes around how do you create this economic layer and bring that value back to channels and communities. I think that's something where we really explore the design surface of where crypto comes in with social. And I think that'll be a fun chat. But let's hear from K-Mac on I don't know which channel he's going to choose to talk about. Football. Go on.
Yeah. Football all the way. So the main mission is a little amorphous. Football is full of rival gangs. Like there are parts of London you can't walk through with the wrong color. That's all coming online. So there's nothing here that says, oh, it's one thing. We're going to try to align and have a common passion and a thread pulled through the channel. But really, this is going to be a lot of different contexts. It's going to be different countries, different leagues, different teams, people that love players, people that love managers. So it's going to be very much decentralized, but with their own little sub-communities as part of it. But one of the big things that drives me is how can we make people profit from their passion? So that would be maybe the one-liner. Like we want football, we want those fans to profit from their passion.
Okay, that's amazing. I think that's very in line where we're getting great comments for all the channels. But I think the profit and community is a good theme we can explore in a bit. But I think one thing that I want to also surface, which is becoming clear, is that so far on Farcaster, we've seen a lot of in its current form, Warpcast is well suited for creators. It's a Twitter-like mold, form factor, and you guys with the things you're building with your channels are more the nucleus is communities, right? You're trying to bring people together around a common topic, around a common theme, or a common shared goal, and try and drive engagement and grow your channel and grow your people who can participate. And in that sense, then you're kind of what's a reference for Web 2? It's Reddit, it's Discord channels, it's Facebook groups. Like there's a bunch of what McBain said about parenting. You still go to Facebook and actually find great content on Facebook groups around parenting. Maybe not great, let me take that back. But it is a place where there's sufficient content. Similar is the case with Reddit when you want to find memes or 4chan, Johnny, when you think about what's a compatible Web 2 for memes. And for KMAC and football, you would also think about places like Reddit or other. So you're kind of competing. I don't want to say compete, but there are good references for community venues in Web 2. And we're just getting started on using Farcaster for that, right? So what are some of the tools? I'm curious about how you think about what is the minimum viable like table stakes of tools and interfaces, which creates a great parity UX for users who want to chat about football, who want to actually make it easy to contribute or view memes or be a parent and not have the same hoops to cross as any other crypto social app, right? And it's pretty much like Facebook groups or Discord channels or Reddit. So I'm curious, how do you guys think about these tools and interfaces? That is kind of one of the central themes of the panel that we wanted to discuss. What are you currently using? What do you find useful so that other channel mods who are listening or tuning in right now or later come back, they can learn from it. McBain, we can start with you if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of minimum viability, right? It's just Warpcast. They've done a really good job. Many people have tried to front run Warpcast features, and it's not a winning game. I think the best thing to do is to just use that. The more detailed features come when you're really trying to verticalize and monetize it, and the important thing is to decide for yourself what kind of channel it's going to be, right? So for parenting, it's a wholesome community. It's much more like my physical neighborhood, right? But for hockey, it's much more like a subreddit, right? Like I could see a world where we try to monetize it and try and grow it to get more value out of it. And that I'd want to use things like Cura and Hypersub and maybe other things. So it starts with what are you trying to build out of that channel, and then you can decide your tooling.
Johnny?
Yeah, I think that's well said. I would agree with that. I mean, I think that the actual hard part is the building, you know, like of the community. I mean, it's a strange emergent phenomenon, you know, and it's hard to repeat, you know, like what worked for Reddit, you know, decades ago at this point, like is not going to work for Farcaster, and probably whatever works for Farcaster is not going to be repeatable. These are like these very unique combination of things, you know, and they're at certain moments in time. So that part I feel like is really hard to get right. The best, like all you can really do as a channel owner is just show up and do your best and try to create a vibe and a culture and an energy that it attracts other people, that makes them want to participate as well. And I mean, but ultimately we're kind of downstream of, I would say, Merkle to like majority downstream of Merkle, and to a lesser extent, I think other developers. But then really it's like, I think that you asked this question about like, what's the table stake thing, or like what's like the bare minimum that you need. And I actually think that bar has gotten super, super high, you know, in the last, like, I don't know, 5-10 years. Like, the demands on attention are like, is probably the most competitive game in the world. And you're competing with like superpowers, you know. It's like David and Goliath. If David is like 1 inch tall and Goliath is like 1,000 feet tall, like it's so asymmetric. And you need really good content. You need really good feeds, you know. And I feel like crypto is in this process of trying to figure out a new competitive axis, which is like economics, you know, which is we can look at these incumbents and we're like, damn, you know, how much money is Reddit worth? Like, what's their market, you know, what's their market cap? It's like enormous, you know?
Yeah, $30 billion.
Right, $30 billion. It just came out a day or two ago or whatever. Well, how much of that is going back to the people who make it what it is? You know, close to zero. And so I think it's a good competitive axis. It's a good lens through which to look at how to compete with incumbents. But we haven't, I feel like it's still very unclear like what the winning strategy is there. And so we're still, you know, it's like, is it tokens? Is it memberships? Is it some kind of point system? Like, what's the model here? How do we take advantage of this like rich raw material that we have, which is like economic primitives, programmable economic primitives? How do we use that? You know, it's like we have this, I often think about like crypto is this like alien technology, and we don't know how to use it yet. We're kind of like these apes, like pressing buttons, and we're like this, and like, you know, like the trunk of the car opens. We're like, no, not like that. Okay. No. Figure that out. It's like there's going to be something powerful there, but it's still like you still have to solve the table stakes problem of like, you need very good content. You need a very, very good feed. You need a very good consumer user experience. And that's baseline. Those are just hygiene factors, you know?
Right. So it's very interesting, and we'll get to what I think to Hypersub and to ClankPad as well. But it's almost like you're thinking in two buckets. One is we need to have good content liquidity. That's the bare minimum. That's downstream of more users, good users, less spam. You need good feeds. You can't compete on just feeds, to McBain's earlier point. Like, you can't just try and say, hey, my feed is better, so come move to my client. You need something else. But these are just the baseline features, right? And then it's the competitive differentiation, which is the economic axis, which is kind of what Web2 cannot do by design. And now we can use this kind of decentralized tech stack for communities, which includes Ethereum or any blockchain, Farcaster and Open Social Graph, and a bunch of other tools which can actually unlock this new value. Value creation is there, but how does value kind of dispersal happens? So that's kind of Third, we know we can use crypto in some way, but we need a lot of experiments to do that. And while we kind of have these baseline, hey, I just can't show spam to people. They will not come to parenting, or they will not come to football. And you can't just get an average Reddit user to say, hey, come spend time on my channel because it's better. So I think that's a good framing, Johnny. Kevin, K-Mac, I'm curious, how do you think about this?
So I don't use Reddit. I might be like the only person in the world that doesn't. And I try not to think about competitors and really approach it from a place of abundance. What do we have here? What kind of Legos? And I think Johnny nailed it. We have these economic primitives, and attention is the thing of value. And now we can make attention something that value is transferred with the tap of a heart or a wow wow, right? So really kind of focusing on, okay, what's unique that crypto brings to the equation that others don't. And I think, Merkle's amazing, and they've made amazing contributions, but they've also stunted the ecosystem, and many people left. Good devs, really good teams. And I think that knob is turned a little bit, and they're starting to embrace and really have a kind of a DevX first experience. That is the only way that we're going to bring in football fans that are on Reddit or out on YouTube or whatnot, is if we can actually have them on board and go get them in a very smooth and easy way, without having to rejigger 5 times how to authenticate and write a signer 5 times over a year. That's just unsustainable for a small startup. And I think that's changing. We've matured to a point. The trade-off was speed, right? And I get it. And I complete and massive respect for the team over there. But it is time to act more like an operating system for communities and the devs that are building them.
Right. I think that's super cool as well. So another thing is, let's assume in the next few weeks or months, we'll have a great parity UX. Anyone can be onboarded onto Farcaster and find good communities. They can easily create a Farcaster account, which has an embedded wallet. So the crypto and social onboarding experience is great. And we can have great feeds. We can figure out these public spam data sets, etc. So a lot of work Merkle is doing will help us get that baseline. I want to dive in a bit on now the economic engine part. I think that is kind of an interesting design space, right? And we have Hypersub and we have Clankpad as 2 great examples of that. You build a community on Farcaster. You can gate it easily. There's a lot of gating tools. You can create subscriptions. You can create everything that exists as a monetization layer for bringing in people, seeing what the treasury stack of a community is, and then start to disperse it. People can every post could be having some value, right? Within a channel, how do you pass that value back? How that discovery happens? So there's a bunch of these things which can be an economic engine for a community, which is the kind of the differentiation piece. I want to probably start with Johnny. If with all these controlling for all these issues we see on onboarding, on Farcaster, etc., if you had to have a wish list, or what would be the ideal kind of growth and end state for building this crypto social experience for communities, which is having this differentiated economic engine? Share more about that so that devs and community builders can start running these experiments, whether it's with Hypersub or anything else. How do you think about it, Johnny? Put that, and memes is a great example. Why I want to start with you is it is probably the channel which has an economic engine, and it already you've been earning money from the Hypersubs and distributing it back. You've been building the tool to serve meme channel, dog fooding everything. So talk us about where do you see this going, like controlling for all the issues that we can solve.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess the short and simple answer is like, I don't know. The longer, answer, just I can kind of just stream of conscious kind of share how I think about this, which is that you need a stable substrate wherein technological fucking around and finding out can happen. And I think that Warpcast, you know, like Merkle has done a really good job at that. It's not great, you know, like there's all kinds, it breaks, you know. The developer experience has been like very volatile, you know, they're working on that. Like growth has kind of happened in fits and starts. But like if you just try to squint in and look into the future, you just imagine all of those things getting cleaned up. And you also imagine there being like really good content. So to me, that this is like, you have these like real fundamental issues that you have to solve for, like these like network effect problems that are just like timeless and very difficult problems to solve, which is you like want a lot of really high quality content creators, and then you want a lot of content consumers, and you want them to converge in the product every day, all day. Like that's super, super hard to create. So you see that Merkle doing things like, oh, we'll pay you. We have this rewards. That's cool. And it's also something that Twitter does at a way bigger scale, you know? So it's like, how do you differentiate? I think that you have these like real fundamental issues that have to be solved before you can even really see what's working and what isn't working. But I just, if you squint and you like make this big assumption that will get solved, that either the Merkle team or some other team, Coinbase maybe, I don't know, they will figure out how to magically get like thousands of awesome community builders and content creators, and then all of the associated audiences that those people have to somehow start posting on Farcaster. Let's just say that happens. Cool. I think that the answer to, well, what's the winning monetization strategy? It's like not a thing it's not knowable. You can't know this a priori. It's almost like free market capitalism. It's like what you really need are things like you need a stable currency, you need contracts, you know, you need property rights, you need this like basic kind of economic ingredients, and then what bubbles up from that, who knows? And so I feel like we have the one but not the other. Like we have all these developers that are building all these really cool economic primitives and are kind of ready to go, and lots of, I think, developer appetite to continue iterating and experimenting on that. Like Zora just launched this new launcher today. Cool model, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, I don't know. But the point is that it's this iterative stochastic process that this entire ecosystem is on. But it's happening at such a small scale because we don't have a lot of creators and users that it's hard to know if it's really working. And if it can work at scale. I think like you have to have that. And then once you have it, you need a very stable environment in which lunatics like the people on this call can rapidly iterate, you know? And I think like the problem is that what we've had up to this point is just volatility everywhere. Like volatility in the user base, volatility on the protocol, and like volatility on the application layer. And so you just like, you're in this sort of chaotic storm of disorder, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how do you like what's true, what's real, like what's not? It's just very hard to sense me in this environment. So anyway, that's like my like more rambling like I'm like, okay, this is what I want. Like I want a very stable protocol, and I want a lot of creators and a lot of consumers. And then once that's established, like I think that we're going to answer the question you asked in this stochastic manner, like through a lot of iteration, through a lot of experiments. But like you kind of need this, you know, it's like this thing about like how life emerges on planets. Right. It's
like a metamorphosis.
For the life to kind of iterate, and if you have comets hitting it all the time, then it's like you're never going to get past the like amoeba phase. And it feels a little bit like crypto has been like that for the past few years.
I think that's words of wisdom from Johnny on a Friday morning. I think we should, the last 2 minutes, we will try and cut them out and make sure we pin it on GM Farcaster. They should be on for the entire week. And
it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, and then the Farcaster OS. I mean, this panel has been the perfect way to end this virtual summit. Johnny Mac, I just adore you. Like, so much. Like, just beautiful. Just beautiful words.
Hey, there's three Macs on this call. You can.
I
give
know.
or take.
It's like it's
Was
a
that
triple
by
Mac.
design?
It was the Big Mac show, is what it is. It's all about.
Nice.
There's something there. Should you ever want to, launch something?
New podcast dropping soon. Yeah,
We need like Mac.
Love
on
it. Great idea.
GM Network.
Three
Like,
Macs.
Yeah. That's
we've
fun.
got
GMAC.
we've got the setup right here. I think McBain, you still have access. I'm pretty sure, unless I took you out to put somebody else in. I can't remember, but yeah. But we can add you back. So this has been awesome. I really appreciate all this wisdom. It has been so fun to sort of sit back and just listen. Sahil, fantastic job moderating. This has been wonderful. We're going to be putting all of this these 2 days out into our regular podcast feed. So it'll be on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and all the places with some show notes. And anything else that you want to say to wrap this up, Sahil?
No, I think this was great. Thanks for taking the time, guys, and we'll definitely follow up. I think there's a bunch of people who are excited about channels, as some of us here on the panel, and let's keep going. I think let's focus on the process and the meta framework, like Johnny said, and we'll do better week on week. So I think that's and I know all of us here are trying our best, and that's why we're here showing up, every day. And thanks so much for Navnish Prof for using GM Farcaster to kind of stir up the most important conversations that can happen on the timeline, but this is a great way to kind of scale them as well. But
this has been
cool,
fantastic. Fantastic. And I'll see some of you in East Denver next week. Farcaster meetup on Saturday, GM Farcaster brunch on Saturday morning. Looking forward to seeing all of you. And with that,
do we get a unison? Can we do it in unison?
We can do it in unison. Yeah. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was not in unison. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.